Spirits, when they are at their best, are about facilitating joy and connection and building community. So if we could be a small part of that in any way, then I think we've done our job.
Hey, this is Harman Skurnick, and welcome to another episode of Skurnick Unfiltered. Today I've got with me Jared McGuire, who is a portfolio manager here at Skurnick for all things spirits. For today's interview, you sat down with Tom Jackson, who is a local spirits supplier. He's got a brand called Supergay.
He does. Local, not originally. He's an Aussie, as you'll no doubt hear in the recording. You know, we had a wide-ranging conversation about his early life, all of the many artistic and creative pursuits that led him to where he is today.
He used to be, or I don't know if he still is, but he used to be a creative director at an ad agency or something.
That's right, ad agency, a lot of work in marketing, brand building for brands as wide-ranging as Jim Beam to Pampers diapers, which I called him out on because I saw his LinkedIn profile. So,
well, his creativity shows in the packaging for Supergay, because I think is absolutely beautiful package.
It's a stunning package. It's the first thing that really grabs your eye. He clearly has a tremendous eye for detail. He knows how to capture an audience.
The vodka is made in upstate New York. He also has a gin now, something which he labels Fire Island gin.
Fire Island dry gin.
Must be popular there.
Incredibly popular there, incredibly popular outside of it. It's the first thing he introduced to us after 5 years of just a single item with this vodka. So it was a really welcome and very much an intuitive addition to the portfolio.
He also has a tagline, Farm to Disco. What's that all about? Does he talk about that?
He does talk about it. We talked about it a lot. I think it perfectly embodies his outlook on life. I think the bona fides are certainly there as far as the quality and the scrutiny and the very deliberate acts that he takes to make sure the product is clear and clean and well supported. And then the disco is just this little lovely cheeky nod, you know. So we take something
it's kind of like
very,
farm to table, but it's farm to disco.
It's farm to table, which it truly is in its production, and then he throws in the little nod to all things joyful, which is really ultimately what Tom Jackson is all about.
Very cool. And lastly, I think he donates a certain percentage of his proceeds to LGBTQ causes. Isn't that right?
He does consistently every year. There's always a portion that's donated there. And also he supports other social justice causes. Famously during the pandemic, just as he was getting his brand off the ground, he donated to restaurant workers who were out of work and provided a real support.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. On that note, why don't we listen in on your conversation with Tom Jackson of Supergay?
Sounds great. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Tom, you started Supergay Spirits in 2018, but let's wind back the clock a little bit. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia, the cold part of Australia, we like to say, and moved to New York in 2007.
And before you moved to New York, what defined your life and interests while you were in Melbourne as a student?
Well, I grew up working in bars and restaurants from the time I was legally allowed to work, if not maybe earlier. And I worked in pubs, worked all over the place. And then I studied art history in college, as well as creative advertising. I was living with two friends who were going to go travel South America. And so we were going to have to give up our shared house. And I had kind of wild year, a lot of sort of crazy things that happened. I broke my arm wrestling.
That sounds so Australian.
It was very Australian. It was on a barrel in a pub, and wouldn't advise arm wrestling anyone over a barrel in a pub. I had a breakup. My brother had passed away very suddenly. And so it was kind of a lot of big changes happening. And I just thought, what better time to kind of run away from my problems and give New York a go. So that was really kind of the inspiration to come over here.
And then you find yourself in New York and you're copywriting.
Yeah.
For, if I understand, a lot of big clients, yeah?
Yeah. Worked on a lot of different accounts. I worked on Cointreau, Tanqueray. I worked on the Beam brand for a number of years, and then also worked on a couple of launches for some celebrity tequila, which was a fun experience. But yeah, quite a range.
So big history in spirits. And I think outside, did I see, did you do copywriting for Pampers too?
Did I do Pampers? Yeah, I'm sure I did. I did so many different brands. I mean, when you work at agencies, they throw you in on all kinds of things. One moment you're doing some sort of governmental thing, and the next you might be doing Pampers. So a lot of variety.
So, okay, so you're working for ad firms and you're doing copywriting, and then in 2009, you founded Gay Letter magazine.
Correct.
So tell us a bit about the inspiration for this publication, its evolution over the years, and how it has shaped your life and your career.
We launched the magazine as a email newsletter originally. So we were going out. I was going out a lot with my best friend, Abi. We were going out, 4 or 5 nights a week. So we were enjoying everything that the New York City nightlife has to offer. There was no guide about what was happening in the city. And it just felt like it was an opportunity to create something like that. So we created this email newsletter that went out once a week. It was like 5 most important things you should do that week. And it quickly kind of amassed an audience and got quite popular. And so from that, we evolved it into a website and then eventually a magazine that comes out twice a year that focuses on art, culture, fashion, and is now in its 23rd issue.
You have these interests and this history with art and culture and advertising, and the pieces start to fit. So how did you get from Gay Letter to deciding to launch your own spirits brand?
Well, as I said, we were going out a lot and we were throwing parties, we were attending parties, and we got to see how a community liked to drink, like how they like to connect and how they like to drink. And so it felt like there was an opportunity there to create a brand that could connect with that community in a really authentic way. So a lot of brands will slap a rainbow on a product and call it a Pride edition. And to us, that felt like a very hollow expression and didn't really feel like it had much connection to the actual people that they're selling their products to. So we felt like there was an opportunity there to do something very authentically connected to the community. And, having worked with a lot of legacy spirits brands, there's a lot more rules and a lot more brand codes that you have to adhere to. And we took as much as we could from those experiences into Supergay, respect for craft and respect for the heritage of the brand. Those things are important, but being a new and younger brand, it felt like an opportunity for us to have a bit more fun, to show up a bit more provocatively and to do things a little differently. So that was our inspiration when launching Supergay.
And then the next question is, why vodka?
Well, one, because vodka is kind of the most iconically gay spirit. A lot of people refer to it as gay water because it's consumed so much by the community. So there's that. 2, it just felt like a really approachable first spirit to create. It really does have my heart. Like, I think it's a very misunderstood spirit. I think it's quite a simple spirit, but paradoxically quite complex.
On the subject, what do you think about the statement that we hear both within the industry and outside the industry? Oh, it's vodka. It's not meant to taste like anything.
Well, I think that is true. And legally, you can't really make it taste like anything before you have to reclassify it as a flavored vodka. So I think it is true that it shouldn't have an overpowering taste, but I do think you can do quite a lot with the little you have. There's very few levers you can pull, but if you pull them right, I think you can create something that does have a bit more texture. It can have a little bit more personality and can be unique in its own way while still very much being a vodka and not scaring anyone off. Vodka is made to be versatile and made to be mixed in cocktails, and you don't want to do anything that doesn't work beautifully in a martini, but I think you can do more than people expect.
So that makes me ask the question, what separates a good vodka from a bad vodka?
Well, I would say a bad vodka, I hear this all the time when I do tastings, and I'll taste people unmixed. So just over, I always like to offer an ice cube because I think vodka is better cold. But the one thing I hear most is people will say, oh, I had a bad experience in college with vodka, or vodka is harsh or sharp, and so I think a not so great vodka is going to hit you a little harder and have sharp edges. And I think a good vodka is going to be a little softer, maybe have a little sweetness, a bit more texture, and should be pleasant. You should be able to sip a good vodka over the rocks. And most people aren't going to do that, but you should be able to, I think.
And you did a lot of R&D when building this brand, right? So the source material, without getting too much in the weeds, but a little bit for the nerds.
Yeah.
How much did you play around with the source distillate? Did you know immediately you wanted to use corn?
We did. We wanted to use corn because corn offers a little bit more of that sweetness I was talking about. It's also a very American grain, which we're a New York made product. So we wanted to use a local grain. In a vodka, everything kind of has to earn its place. So the grain has to earn its place. The water has to earn its place. How you filter it has to be very intentional and has to earn its place, because even small changes to the flow rate when you're filtering can really strip quite a bit from the final product. So everything has to be very, very intentional, because you're going to notice if you do too much, if you pull some of those levers too much.
And at what point does filtration start removing character instead of improving the overall product in your view?
For us, that would be 3 passes. So we use a coconut charcoal filter. We tried 5, we tried 1. 3 was that perfect sweet spot where it didn't strip too much flavor, kept a bit more of that kind of European mouthfeel, as some people like to call it, that viscosity. That was our sweet spot, 3.
Now, we started working with your product here at Skurnik in March of 2021.
Yep.
And your brand immediately found its place, but I will say, we did have to wait about 2 years before you extended the line. So then in 2024, actually, so maybe about 3 years,
yeah.
you were just vodka, and then you launched a line of ready-to-drink cocktails. But last year, around this time, you launched Fire Island Gin. So tell us about this gin and how it came to be.
So the gin came about from an encounter with a oyster farmer, former WNBA basketball player named Sue Wicks, which I know is quite a lead, but she's kind of a legend in the WNBA. She was the first woman to come out of the closet in the WNBA, and now she's a really great oyster farmer in Marichi's Bay, in the waters of Fire Island, we like to say. And she recently has started farming kelp, which is very exciting because New York doesn't really have much of a kelp industry. It's largely in Maine, but we have beautiful, wide open ocean, and kelp is great for the water. It cleans the water, it protects her oysters. And so we had a conversation about how could we incorporate her kelp into a gin. We always knew we wanted to do a gin, but we only wanted to do it when we felt like we had an idea that sort of made sense for us as a brand. And so working with her made a lot of sense because she is farming the waters of Fire Island, and Fire Island is a really special place for me personally. I've spent many summers on that island. It's a really special place for the queer community. It has a super long history. It's just a beautiful island. And so we wanted to do a gin that incorporated her kelp, but also had some other sort of summer-inspired botanicals. So it's a coastal summer-inspired gin. So we have her kelp, we have an elderflower that is native to this region. We have 2 types of lime. We have lime peel, and then we also have whole finger limes from Australia, where I grew up, as well as Tasmanian pepperberry from where I grew up. So it's really kind of a culmination of my summers as a kid in Australia and then my summers as an adult in New York going to Fire Island. So it's been a really enjoyable and pleasurable spirit to make and share with the world.
I love that. I love how New York identified your brand is, and then that little bit of home that you bring. And then 2 fruits, your cheekily named RTD line. So we've spent 2 years loving your debut duo, the Ginger Mule and Cosmo. But before we tease out the next pair of cocktail releases, what do 2 fruits cocktails do differently in this rapidly growing, very competitive world of RTDs?
Yeah, that's a good question. Similar to creating the gin, we really wanted to do RTDs when we felt like we could have a very Supergay point of view. So that's leaning into the name 2 fruits is kind of a slightly provocative extension of the Supergay family. And then again, using as many local ingredients as possible. And then also the thing that we found when we were doing research into canned cocktails, a lot of them seem to have 2 issues. One was that they could often be quite sweet, which we wanted to avoid. And secondly, to avoid being sweet, they'll often use artificial sweeteners. So we wanted to not do either of those. So we've worked really hard to reduce the sugar levels in these. They are quite low in sugar content for canned cocktails. Our Ginger Mule uses apple juice to sweeten it, which is a more natural way to sweeten it. And then using real ingredients. So real ginger, real cranberry, real lime. We've just launched these 2 new 2 fruits flavors. We're doing a black sesame espresso martini. So this is a very classic espresso martini recipe with real coffee, which is challenging for many reasons because it's quite expensive now. Coffee has really gone up in price with chocolate and many other ingredients. And then, yeah, a little bit of black sesame. So it's kind of got a nutty, slightly sweet bit of vanilla. It's really yummy. And then the other one is a chili mango spritz, which is mango concentrate, real lime juice. It's a little lower ABV than our current cocktails. So it's 8% ABV and a good amount of chili. So there's green chilies and espelette peppers, which add a little bit more of a savory note.
They're so good. They really complete the line. Two Fruits, your first foray into RTDs. I can say we have had a number of brands over the years who haven't done RTDs as their primary product, have tried, decided that they wanted to get into the game and tried to create it, and have met with some real challenges along the way. So did you experience similar challenges with regard to canning or with regard to, what works, how long things, if you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I won't bore you with all the there's a lot of challenges in cans. I would say way more challenges in cans than in spirits. But yes, we did. There's a lot of challenges. And to use real ingredients is challenging. So to use real lime juice, there's a limit on how much lime juice you can use before there's shelf stability issues. So that's a challenge. Yeah, using real ingredients, balancing flavors, making sure they keep and they last a long time. ABV, certain things have to be higher ABV for stability. There's a lot of challenges. It was not an easy process, but it's been fun to do. And we're very excited about the new ones. I think they're going to be really liked.
Any hilarious or horrifying R&D stories?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we have one right now. We just got sent all the cans for the chili mango and they left the O off mango.
Oh, no.
So luckily it's an easy fix and that is going to be resolved quickly. But yeah.
Yes, we don't want to sell chili mange.
Chili mang, no. So yeah, things like that will happen in cans. But luckily we're moving forward.
So we have this extended product line, and now we've got what looks much more, zooming out, like a really complete package. And I'm looking at the bottles right in front of me right now, and they're just visually so striking. Who did the art on the label?
So that is an artist, very talented artist from Texas named Blake Mitchell. And we basically just said to him, just draw us something super gay, just like have fun. Go bananas with it and have fun. And so he sent back a sheet of paper and it had about 12 faces on them. And the first ones were the vodka and the gin. And then they kind of got more trippier and trippier as it went along. And so I said, Blake, what happened to these faces? They kind of got a little wild by the end. And I guess the story was that he went away to a cabin in the woods and he might have eaten some magical mushrooms and started going on a drawing exercise. And
Who
so
among us?
that's how they but the first few were kind of perfect, so we have used them for the vodka and the gin.
They're really striking. Who goes out and sees Supergay on the shelf? Who's the target audience?
Who is the target audience? I mean, selfishly from my perspective, I would like to say that I think anyone can be a target audience of Supergay. I don't think you need to be super gay to buy Supergay, and in fact the majority of our business is not predominantly LGBT bars. It's a much broader spectrum from that. I think it's anyone who wants to bring a bit more fun and a bit more joy to their back bar. I mean, I hear that all the time from bar staff that our bottle is often the most asked about behind a bar. The name and the illustrations, I think, can draw people in. And so I think it's for people who want to, add a little bit more personality and have a bit more fun.
And yet you said when you were first conceptualizing the brand, you may have had some doubts about the name?
Well, we definitely had some doubts about the name. Yeah, we definitely had some thoughts about, is this name too bold? Is it too provocative as a name? But we tried so many different names. And every time we would show people a finished bottle with Supergay on it, people's faces would light up and it just kind of chose us. We didn't really have a choice in the end. That was the one that people connected to the most. So we did as we were told. Can I tell you a funny story about ways we've shown up in the world?
By all means.
This happened a couple years ago. We got a notification on Instagram that someone had tagged us. And when I went to look at the video, it was a CNN former CNN anchor, Don Lemon. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
Don Lemon, and he was holding a bottle of Supergay, and he proceeded to tell a story. He was at a very fancy restaurant in the city, and he said that he'd ordered 2 martinis for him and his husband, and they'd enjoyed them very much. And then when the check came, it said 2 Supergay martinis. And he thought the restaurant were calling him Supergay, and he called them over to ask, and they said, no, that's the vodka we use in our martinis. So,
And then you got a little Don Lemon
and then we got a
plug.
little Don Lemon plug. He held up the bottle, and
Well, I mean, Don Lemon, I would call that Supergay with a twist.
yeah. So that was fun. So we for us, we always want to show up in a fun way. We want to bring our sort of tagline when we started is farm to disco, and that's something that we've carried through. So we always want to have a bit of fun in how we show up in the world. But on the other side of that, what we put into the bottle, we take very seriously. So we want to make a really great product that can back up the name. So when people try it, they fall in love with it, not just because it has a fun label and a fun name, but because it's a delicious product and it's versatile and can be used in lots of cocktails.
From Farm to Disco is so perfectly emblematic of your brand because it manages to pull in all the evocative notions of things that we care about, farm to table and transparency and organic grain, New York grown, small farms, New York aquifers, right? Farm to Disco really defines your brand so beautifully and speaks to a number of different audiences. And I think that that's really a major measure of its success.
Thank you. No, that means a lot to hear. I mean, with a name like ours, we always felt like we had to work twice as hard to make sure the product inside was really good, so it could stand up to being a fun name like that. And Farm to Disco, yeah, it just felt like a good fit for us because we do care about where we get our ingredients from, but when we serve it, we want people to have a good time. You know, ultimately, spirits, when they are at their best, are about facilitating joy and connection and building community. So if we could be a small part of that in any way, then I think we've done our job.
Categorically, we tend to sell more vodka and more gin and certainly more RTDs in Q2, Q3 in spring, summer as the weather warms up. But there is a particular sales spike that we always anticipate with Supergay here at Skurnik, which is Pride Month, which is now.
We love Pride. It's our favorite months of the year. It's our biggest months of the year. It's our Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah all rolled into one. For us, it's an opportunity to connect with the community. It's an opportunity to collaborate with bars and restaurants in really fun ways. I mean, every year we're asked to do Pride cocktails with all kinds of bars and restaurants, and often completely unprompted to us, they will offer to donate a percentage of that cocktail to a cause. We support the LGBT Center in the West Village, and we've been working to deepen that partnership as we grow as a brand. There's a lot of good that comes from those collaborations. So that means a lot to me. We never ask anyone to do that, but when they offer, we always take them up on it. And it's a really special thing to be a small part of.
Where would you say the brand is heading and what's next for Supergay Spirits?
Well, we did a redesign of our cans. So all 4 flavors have a new design, and that's been a really long process. And so getting those cans in front of as many people as possible. This is our second summer having the gin. So I'm going to be spending plenty of time in Far Island tasting people at accounts we have out there. So I would say for us, it's really just deepening the relationships we have currently and getting the product in front of as many new accounts as possible. We still have so much room to grow as a business. And then, you know, hopefully extending the line in some fun and surprising ways.
Tom, before we go, give us the specs on the cocktail, the Supergay cocktail you're most excited about drinking this summer.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a classic that I go back to. I had it last night. We sponsored a charity event last night, and I had a super wet Supergay martini. So that's kind of my go-to. Fino, sherry, a little Genepi, and our gin.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's very delicious.
Tom Jackson, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Skurnik Unfiltered is recorded at Skurnik Wines and Spirits headquarters in the Flatiron District of New York City. If you found the conversation interesting, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. You can stay up to date on our show and upcoming events by following Skurnik Wines on Instagram and visiting our website at skurnik.com.